Can I ask you a question? When was the last time you left your work with energy still left in the tank? Not the kind of day where you collapsed in your car, stared at the steering wheel for about 5 minutes, and wondered, how is it only Tuesday? I mean, a day where you thought, wow, I'm going home. And I don't feel exhausted or tired. For a lot of high achievers like us, those days are becoming harder and harder to remember. Instead, you leave work mentally replaying conversations, wondering if you forgot something, thinking about that one email you should probably answer tonight, and try to solve tomorrow's problems before tomorrow even gets here. And here's the strange part. You look around your office or your Zoom screen, and everyone seems fine. Somehow they're leaving on time. They're taking vacations. They're saying things like, I'll get to that next week. Meanwhile, your shoulders are practically touching your ears. Your inbox has become your second home, and you're wondering if you're the only one who actually cares. If that's you, I want to offer a different explanation. Maybe you're not caring more because you're more capable. Maybe you're just caring more because you've become an over-functioner. In the last video, we talked about what overfunctioning is. It's the habit of taking responsibility for things that other capable adults could carry themselves. And a lot of times, we don't even realize we're doing it. So in this video, I want to lift the veil off of overfunctioning. Because overfunctioning doesn't always look dramatic. Most of the time, it looks like being the reliable one. The problem is, reliability slowly turns into you being responsible for everything. I'm going to walk you through 5 signs that you are carrying more than your share at work. Because awareness is where change begins. You finish what other people leave incomplete. Picture this. You're in a meeting. A deadline is coming up. Everyone agrees who's responsible for what. You leave feeling good. Great. And then Thursday arrives. One person hasn't finished their part. Another forgot to send information they promised. Someone else says,
Oh, I didn't realize I needed to do that today.
You feel it immediately. That tightening in your chest. That little voice inside you saying, we're not going to make it. Before anyone even asks, you're already opening the document, sending emails, making phone calls, fixing the problem. And here's what most overfunctioners tell themselves. I'm just being a team player. Part of that is true. You do care about the team, but there's usually something deeper happening underneath. Waiting for someone else to solve the problem creates anxiety inside yourself. Not inconvenience, anxiety. Because your nervous system has learned that uncertainty is dangerous. Taking over feels safer than waiting. So you step in again and again and again. The interesting thing is, people notice. Maybe not consciously, but they notice. Over time, your coworkers begin expecting that if something starts falling apart, you'll catch it. Not because they're lazy, because you've become incredibly consistent. You've unintentionally trained people around you that the gap will always be filled by you. Think about that for a second. Every time you rescue a situation before someone experiences the consequences of dropping the ball, you remove the opportunity for them to grow. Growth almost always requires discomfort. But for overfunctioners are so uncomfortable watching someone struggle that they accidentally interrupt the learning process. That's one of the hardest truths about this pattern. Sometimes helping keeps people dependent. Delegating feels like more work than doing it yourself. Let's be honest. How many times have you said something like,
Oh, just give it to me. It'll just take 5 minutes.
or,
By the time I explain it, I could have already finished it.
if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I probably wouldn't need to work anymore. Because almost every overfunctioner says it. And technically, they're right. The first time you delegate something, it usually does take longer. You have to explain it, answer questions, clarify expectations, maybe correct a few mistakes. Doing it yourself probably would be faster for today. But that's not the real question. The real question is, what happens 6 months from now? Because every time you skip the handoff, your workload grows and everyone else stays exactly the same. Think about the manager who complains that no one on their team can do what they can do. Sometimes that's true, but sometimes they've never actually allowed their team to learn. Because every time someone struggles, they are there to pick up the tasks that their team dropped. Every time there's a mistake, they quietly fix it. Every time something isn't perfect, they decide it's easier to do it themselves. And here's the uncomfortable part. Every time you skip delegation because it's easier, you may also be communicating something without realizing it. You're communicating, I don't really trust you with this. Now, I know that's hard to hear because your intention isn't to control people. Your intention is to get good results. But intention and impact aren't always the same thing. Healthy leadership isn't always proving that you can do everything. It's about creating an environment where other people can become more capable. That requires patience. It requires allowing others to learn. It requires allowing people to fail sometimes. Overfunctioners hate that because watching someone struggle feels physically uncomfortable. So we jump in. And once again, we become the bottleneck we were trying to avoid. If you're finding yourself nodding along to this, I'd love to have you join this community. Go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, Evolve with Alana. Every week, we're having honest conversations about overfunctioning and how high-achieving women can build success without carrying everyone else along the way. If this video is helping you put words to something you felt for years, you're in the right place. And click on that little subscribe button down below. Now, let's talk about a sign that almost nobody recognizes. Your value feels tied to your output. This one right here is deeply personal to a lot of people. Because overfunctioning isn't really about loving work. It's about needing your work to prove something. Proof that you deserve the position that you're in. Proof that you belong in the room. Proof that you're as capable as everyone thinks you are. Proof that you're still valuable. And sometimes, proof that you're allowed to take up space. Think about that. When you get the promotion, do you simply feel proud? Or do you immediately start thinking,
Now I have to prove that they made the right decision in promoting me.
when you become the person in charge, does it feel like you've arrived? Or does it feel like every move you make becomes evidence that you should or shouldn't have the position in the first place, that's when productivity becomes more than something you do. It becomes evidence. Every completed project becomes proof. Every late night becomes proof. Every problem you solve becomes proof. Every time you say yes when you really wanted to say no, it becomes proof. You're constantly building a case for your own belonging. And the problem is, the case is never finished. You accomplish one thing, and your brain just moves the goalpost. You get the promotion. Now you have to prove you deserve to stay there. You become successful. Now you have to prove you can maintain that success. You have a slow day, and instead of thinking, oh, I have a slow day, your brain asks, am I still contributing enough? Do people still need me? What if they realize I'm not as capable as they thought I was? So when your calendar suddenly clears, when no one needs anything from you, your rest can feel strangely uncomfortable. Because when you're not producing, you lose the evidence. And without the evidence, you may be left with a question you've been avoiding. Am I still valuable when I'm not actively proving my value? I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to take up space before you've proven anything. You're allowed to belong before you've earned another accomplishment. And you are still valuable on the day when you have nothing to show for yourself, except the fact that you made it through the day. Your output is something you create. It's not proof that you deserve to exist. You manage everyone's emotional climate. When you walk into a meeting, what is the first thing you notice? For a lot of people, it's the agenda. But for overfunctioners, it's the people. You notice who's unusually quiet, who seems frustrated, who looks overwhelmed, who's having a bad day, who might be upset after that last email, and who's having beef with whom. You are reading the room before anyone has even said a word. Now, let me be clear. This isn't a bad quality. In fact, it's one of the reasons people trust you. You're emotionally intelligent. You're perceptive. You pick up on things other people miss. The problem isn't that you notice it. The problem is that you feel responsible for fixing what you noticed. Someone seems stressed. You immediately think about how to help them. Two coworkers have tension. You start thinking about how to smooth it over. Your boss is in a bad mood. You become very extra careful with your words. A teammate is overwhelmed. You quietly take something off their plate without being asked. Before you know it, you're not just doing your own job. You're also managing the emotional weather of the entire workspace. And the problem is, that job description doesn't exist. No one officially assigned it to you. No one is paying you to carry it. But your nervous system has quietly accepted the role anyway. You become the emotional infrastructure for your team. And keeping that infrastructure is exhausting because it's invisible. When you finish a report, people can see it. When you solve a technical problem, people can notice it. But when you spend all day preventing conflict, absorbing tension, keeping everyone calm, or making sure no one feels left out, there's nothing tangible to point at the end of the day. You just feel tired. Sometimes incredibly tired. Because emotional labor is still labor. It consumes attention, energy, your nervous system. Here's something I want you to remember. You can be compassionate without becoming responsible for everyone's emotional experience. Those are two very different things. You can care deeply about people without carrying their feelings for them. That's not being cold. That's having healthy boundaries. And healthy boundaries don't make you less caring. They make your caring sustainable. Rest feels like a risk. This last sign might be one of the biggest signs of overfunctioning of them all. Because for some overfunctioners, rest doesn't feel relaxing. It feels dangerous. Not because you don't want to rest, because your brain immediately starts imagining everything that could go wrong while you're gone.
What if someone needs me? What if I miss something important? What if I don't check my email and I wake up to a disaster?
And maybe the biggest fear of all,
what if something goes wrong while I'm away? And because I wasn't there to fix it, everyone blames me.
So you take the vacation, but you check your email from the airport. And then you check it at the hotel. And then you check it before breakfast. And then you check it right before bed. Not because anybody explicitly told you that you had to do that. Because somewhere inside, you believe that if you're not monitoring everything, something could go wrong. And if something goes wrong, you should have known about it. You should have been available. You should have prevented it. So you're technically on vacation, but mentally, you're still on call. And this is where overfunctioning becomes especially exhausting. You don't just feel responsible for your own work. You feel responsible for every possible problem that might happen in your absence. And here's something I want you to consider. If everything truly falls apart the moment you take a day off, that's not proof that you should never rest. That's information about the system. No healthy organization should depend entirely on one person being constantly available. And no single person should be the emergency plan for every possible disaster. We are allowed to disconnect. We are allowed to be unavailable. We are allowed to take a vacation without monitoring our inbox every hour. And if something goes wrong while we're gone, that does not automatically mean it was our fault. Your absence is not negligence. Rest is not abandonment. And you do not have to prevent every single problem in order to prove that you deserve your position. Sometimes the hardest part of resting is trusting that the world can continue without your constant supervision. So let's bring all of this together. You might be an overfunctioning adult if you are 1. Automatically finishing what other people leave incomplete. 2. You don't delegate anything because doing it yourself feels faster. 3. You feel that your output proves your value. 4. You manage everyone else's emotions as though they're your responsibility. And 5. Resting feels more dangerous than working. If 3 or more of those sounded familiar, I want you to hear this. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You're not just bad at boundaries. You are running a pattern that probably helped you become incredibly successful. A pattern that probably earned you praise, that made you dependable, that may have protected you at one point in your life. But patterns that once protected us can eventually be our prison. The goal isn't to stop being responsible. The goal is becoming appropriately responsible. There's a difference. Healthy responsibility says, I own what's mine. Overfunctioning says, I own what's mine and yours just to make sure everything's okay. That's an impossible job. Eventually, even the strongest people break under impossible jobs. So here's my challenge for you this week. The next time you feel that urge to jump in, to fix, to rescue, to take over, pause. Just for a moment. And ask yourself one simple question. Does this actually belong to me? You don't even have to change your answer yet. Just notice, because awareness always comes before change. Oh, and before you go, I do have an announcement. I'm currently talking with women who identify themselves as overfunctioners as I build a brand new course on breaking this pattern for good. These are relaxed one-on-one conversations where I simply want to hear your experience, what you've tried, what's been the hardest thing to get over, and what kind of support would actually make a difference. If you'd like to be part of shaping that course, there is a link in the description down below. Until next time, remember this: your value has never been measured by how much you can carry. Sometimes the strongest thing you'll ever do is put something down. All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.